Gospel of June the 28th, 2015. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. When Jesus had crossed again in the boat to the other side, a large crowd gathered around him, and he stayed close to the sea. One of the synagogue officials, named Jairus, came forward. Seeing him, he fell at his feet and pleaded earnestly with him, saying, "My daughter is at the point of death. Please come, lay your hands on her, that she may get well and live." He went off with him, and a large crowd followed him and pressed upon him. There was a woman afflicted with hemorrhages for 12 years. She had suffered greatly at the hands of many doctors, and had spent all that she had. Yet she was not helped, but only grew worse. She had heard about Jesus and came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak. She said, "If I but touch his clothes, I shall be cured." Immediately her flow of blood dried up. She felt in her body that she was healed of her affliction. Jesus, aware at once that power had gone out from him, turned around in the crowd and asked, "Who has touched my clothes?" But his disciples said to him, "You see how the crowd is pressing upon you, and yet you ask, 'Who touched me?'" And he looked around to see who had done it. The woman, realizing what had happened to her, approached in fear and trembling. She fell down before Jesus and told him the whole truth. He said to her, "Daughter, your faith has saved you. Go in peace and be cured of your affliction." While he was still speaking, people from the synagogue officials' house arrived and said, Your daughter has died. Why trouble the teacher any longer?" Disregarding the message that was reported, Jesus said to the synagogue official, "Do not be afraid, just have faith." He did not allow anyone to accompany him inside except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. When they arrived at the house of the synagogue official, he caught sight of a commotion, people weeping and wailing loudly. So he went in and said to them, "Why is this commotion and weeping? The child is not dead but asleep." And they ridiculed him. Then he put them all out. He took along the child's father and mother, and those who were with him, and entered the room where the child was. He took the child by the hand and said to her, "Talitha, koum," which means, "Little girl, I say to you, arise." The girl, a child of 12, arose immediately and walked around. At that they were utterly astounded. He gave strict orders that no one should know this, and said that she should be given something to eat. Gospel of the Lord, praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. Of course, we have the central point of this beautiful scene of the Gospel is faith. Perhaps of the two great examples of faith, the greatest would be the resurrection of the little dead child, and the other one might not be as great. The resurrection of Jairus' daughter is based upon the love of God for his people, for all of us. And is also based on the faith of this official of the synagogue, that pressed by the urgency of his daughter being dead, becoming dead, he went to search for Jesus while she was very ill. Certainly, he must have run out of doctors, of help, run out of prayers to Yahweh. And in the end, when nothing seemed to work, he looked for his last resort, the new teacher, Jesus the Lord. And he humbled himself before him. "Lord, my daughter is dying. Please come, impose your hands on her so that she will get well and live." In the middle of this struggle, there appears this woman that has a hemorrhage for 12 years. Perhaps she was wealthy, and she had run out of options in this world, consulted the best doctors, spent all her money, and yet there was no help for her. So she received the gift of faith from God himself, because she said to herself, "If only I can touch her cloak, that'll be enough for me to be healed." That is a gift. But what is faith? Faith is before and than anything and above anything else is a gift from God, because faith is something that enables us, rational beings, to comprehend and to open ourselves to the action of God, which goes above our reasoning. We cannot grasp. Faith is not just a mere knowledge of God. It's not an academical knowledge. It's not just a creed. Faith beforehand and above all else is a gift from God. But then, like that seed that is deposited in our heart, in our conscience, we are to embrace it and to make it grow. Because faith on the human level has to grow all the way down to confidence. Certainly, those two personages, those two people, did not have a very great conviction. They had enough. And based on that enough faith, they went to look for Jesus. The one hidden among the crowd that got immediately what he was looking for. No words were spoken between Jesus and her before. She did not even ask the Lord. But the faith that she had accomplished her healing. Now the Lord knows that someone's been healed. But in his human conscience, he is not allowed to see who. But he knows that someone. And he is letting that one risk herself to show her faith. That is to accomplish the total healing. Because the words of the Lord at the end, your faith has saved you. Be in peace, be cured from your infirmity, are the sealing of the healing. But she was trembling because, especially women, when they had the hemorrhage, especially the monthly hemorrhage of the menstruation, they were considered impure. And she was risking even to be stoned for daring, as she was being impure, to touch a master of Israel. Yet immediately the Lord comforts her. Go in peace, daughter. Your faith has saved you. Now we go back to the house of Jairus. Of course, the child is done. She is dead. The word has already spread. The people is doing what is customary in that culture. Wailing, shouting. And all of a sudden comes this master. Just a man, seemingly. And he says, why are you wailing? The child is asleep. And they ridicule him. They do not know who he is. He drives them out, enters into the place, takes the child, the dead child's hand, and says, Talitha, koum. And at the command of the voice of God, she is again given life. And that, all of that, through the faith that Jairus had. What is it that you and I need to ask today to the Lord? What disease do we have that we have not been able to cure by ourselves or by the helping of the world? That we should ask the Lord today humbly, Lord, if you want, you can cure me today. Let us all pray for that. That we might also be increased in our faith. How do we increase the faith? By prayer. We increase the faith by living with Jesus the Lord, that teaches how is our Father. That by that daily communion with Him, by that daily talking to Him, in the conversation that develops in prayer and attending Mass, opening ourselves to Him, we become ever more confident in the action and the love of our God. Until we meet in heaven, God bless you all, brothers.